Well, folks, this Indiana basketball team, just when you think you might start giving up on them, you get a little cranky and grumpy watching them, they pull you right back in. I know you guys were watching that game on Sunday. I was there in person, and you saw that 17-4 deficit, and you said, there's no way that the Iowa Hawkeyes, top 10 team in college basketball, national championship aspirations, we're going to lose again to Indiana. Guess what happened, folks? College basketball and Big Ten, it always delivers, and Armaan Franklin's game-winning shot helped Indiana win 67-65 in Bloomington, and now things are interesting once again. Welcome, Hoosier Nation, to our 181st episode of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for IU sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on February 9th, 2021, where I am your host, Nithin Khristian. Here with me tonight is my usual podcast co-host, Matt Lukens, as well as Jevan McCullough. Matt, I'm going to hand it off to you first. That was a weird, wild, and crazy game against Iowa on Sunday. It preceded the Super Bowl, and who would have expected that Indiana's win was much more exciting than whatever crap we saw on the field Sunday night.
Yeah, if you had told me that before, I would have been very sad because I had very low expectations going to this game in the first place. But no, I mean, and it's incredible that we came out with a win this game. Shout out to the guys for fighting through. I mean, if you look at our three starting guards, they shot 4 of 26 from the floor. I'll repeat that again. 4 of 26. That's not even – I'm trying to think. That's like, what, 15%, 12% off the top of my head? Like, that is incredibly low. But, look, Armaan Franklin, somebody who wasn't shooting well, was 1 of 9 at the time that he hit the game-winning shot. Stepped up when his number was called and finally ran a play through him at the end of the games that we were complaining about last week. He stepped up and sank a shot, had a great call, of course, from Fox Sports.
Yep.
And now we're 2-0 against Iowa. I feel like Iowa is like turned into what Michigan State was for us the last 2 years. And it's like, see, we can play well against a good team.
Yeah.
Except will they show up consistently? That's the question.
I don't know, Matt. That is the $1 million question. Jevan, before we get into the consistency part, what was your initial reaction as you saw Armaan Franklin's jump shot swish through the net and you saw Indiana get that last stop to clinch the game? What was your immediate reaction for this Indiana team that now is seemingly cemented themselves into the tournament field, and now who knows what'll happen?
My first thought was now we go. Like this is a stepping stone in the right direction. And in the last episode, you asked me what would my expectations be after this game if we walked away with a win, and I told you that if we did it how we did it in the last game when we beat Iowa, what should I expect? We're 2-9 following top 25 wins, but the freshmen stepped up big time in this game. Yeah. Jordan Geronimo, Anthony Leal, Khristian Lander, Trey Galloway, they all played more minutes than they have, and they all did very well with the minutes that they were given. I mean, there was that spurt, right before halftime where Trace gets the breakaway dunk, and then we get a block and a steal and a transition Lander 3, and then right after that we get a Leal 3, and it was big time by the freshmen. They played really well. But like moving forward, we'll get into it later, but Northwestern's a big game. It's a trap game, but it's a big game. Like I said, we'll get into it, but I have optimism moving forward with this team.
Yeah, it's more than a trap. I mean, it's like it's a must win if you ask me. We'll get to that in a second. It's a must win if you ask me. Obviously, not in the literal sense, but as far as the way people take that term, it's a must win game. I will say one thing, okay, before we keep going. I was at Assembly Hall on Sunday, and I have to say the behavior that I saw on the Iowa bench, starting with their head coach, Fran McCaffrey, and spreading out to the rest of their players, was some of the most childish and juvenile behavior I have ever seen on a basketball court, especially in a conference like the Big Ten, which is sort of built itself on being, a conference of good sportsmanship and really a lot of honor and dignity. I saw none of that from Iowa throughout the 2 hours on Sunday afternoon. I know we're not supposed to root for a team when we go cover a game, but I'm glad, to be honest, that Iowa lost because they deserve to lose. Fran McCaffrey got teed up when they were up 10 or 12 points in the first half. And frankly, he deserves that. The difference of the game was 2 points. I mean, Al Durham went to the line, knocked down 2 free throws. At the end of the day, he knocked down the difference in the game. And you can't carry yourself like that if you're going to take a team to the Final Four of the national title game. That's why people are skeptics when it comes to the Hawkeyes, because they look at Iowa as a fragile team, as a sensitive team. And when your head coach behaves the way he does, throwing F-bombs at his players during timeouts, which you may not have seen on TV, and when you're carrying yourself the way you do towards the officiating, it's an Iowa team that has a lot of big picture problems going forward, but that doesn't take away from Indiana's win. They fully deserve it. Iowa is one of the best teams in the country as far as their players and their skill set. Let's zone in. Let's focus in on really, to me, those 4 freshmen. I mean, Lander, Leal, Geronimo, Galloway, especially Lander, Leal, and Galloway. I remember sending out a tweet before halftime or during halftime of the IU game that the top 3 plus-minus guys for IU were Lander at plus 12, Leal at plus 9, Galloway at plus 5, all in the first half. Lander specifically helped bring IU back from a 17-4 deficit. Matt, I'm going to throw this your way first. I know, generally speaking, Indiana fans are kind of stuck in the middle with this Hoosier team. But seeing IU go out there and win the way they did, with Khristian Lander playing a key role, with Anthony Leal showing flashes more, does that change your point of view about the trajectory for this team going forward, not just for the Northwestern game on Wednesday, but for the rest of the regular season and beyond?
I mean, for the beyond part, yes. For the regular season and the rest of the season, not really. Like I said, I think we're maybe going to win 8 games in the Big Ten, go 8-12. I still think all this is going to happen. I don't think the trajectory is, tilting up or down at all. It's staying on course. And I honestly expected Lander to come out in the end of the year. I remember we all said at the beginning of the year, give him time. He's a freshman. He'll take time to adapt to things. We're starting to see him finally get comfortable, which is good news. He's going to be uncomfortable against Northwestern. He just is. They're going to do some different things to him now. They have more tape on him. And he's going to have to learn how to overcome that. And then come Saturday or Sunday when we play Ohio State, same thing. It's a top 10 team, a team that's actually much better than Iowa, by the way. Top 10 team in the Buckeyes, that he's going to have to play his best basketball if we're going to have a chance to win against them. So for Lander, no, it doesn't change anything for this season. But looking forward to next season, kind of seeing what he can do, if he can be more consistent and maybe get some work like Armand Franklin did this summer, and work on the shot a little bit. All of a sudden, next year starts to look very promising, especially if somebody by the name of Trayce Jackson-Davis decides to come back. Who knows? Maybe he does. He probably won't. But that would be nice if he did. And we would be missed. It would not be a good podcast if we did not talk about Trayce Jackson-Davis and Race Thompson.
Absolutely.
Because we talk about the 4 freshmen, but it was the 4 freshmen and the Race and Trayce show. That's what it was. I opened up talking about the 3 guards, how badly they shot. Yeah, they did. But the positives were Race, Trayce, and the 4 freshmen. Again, the 4 freshmen were the only people who came off the bench, by the way.
Yeah.
We didn't have any upperclassmen come off the bench. It was the 4 freshmen off the bench and the starters. Race Thompson is a great player. Trayce Jackson-Davis is an All-American. Like, these 2 deserve to play with guards that are consistent. Right now, we don't have that play. The freshmen come in and they give it all they got, and they put so much effort in, and it's great to see. And they have good chemistry, too.
Yeah.
But Race and Trayce deserve better.
Yeah. They held Luka Garza to 2 rebounds on Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how ridiculous that is? Garza is the guy who gets 8 or 10 or 12 in his sleep. And Thompson and Jackson-Davis especially, I know they combined for 32 points, but they held Garza to 2 rebounds. Jevan, I know you're a big Khristian Lander guy, and during that game, he made a couple of really big plays, big-time passes, quick drives to the rim that kept Iowa's defense off balance. Is he the key now as far as getting Indiana to go on a little bit of a run here? Or do you think it's still Trace Jackson-Davis, Race Thompson, Al Durham, Rob Finney, Armand Franklin, all sort of ahead of him in the pecking order before Lander, as far as who's responsible for really getting the Hoosiers stringing together a few wins?
Well, I mean, I think the Hoosiers have to, still run through Trace. I think, Trace, like Matt said, is an All-American type player. But as far as the guards, I mean, maybe Armand Franklin, but I think I said it in the last episode, I think Lander is the key to the success of this IU team moving forward. I mean, like Nithin, you've said before, Matt, you too, like, we know what we're going to get with Rob. He's a junior. He's the player that he is. Like with Lander and with Leal, with like these freshmen I keep coming back to, this experience that they're getting is only going to help them in not only in next year and the year after that, but like towards the end of the season. We are getting on a stretch of games where it is tough basketball. It is Big Ten brutality basketball, and this experience is something that they're not going to be able to get in any other conference. And Lander is the key to this all moving forward.
I'm already hearing the Jaws music in the background, as Indiana heads to Columbus on Saturday. I went out and I asked Hoosier Nation in our Hoosier Sound weekly podcast poll over on Twitter. And remember, you guys can follow us at the Hoosier Sound as well as at Indiana HQ. And I asked, hey, with IU's wins over Iowa, as well as their close losses to teams like Wisconsin and Illinois and Rutgers and Florida State, and the overall really tough strength of schedule that this team has played, what's the ceiling? And the majority of people right now are still leaning towards first weekend of the NCAA tournament. 46% of people said that, but at the same time, 41% said Sweet 16 Elite 8. As far as ceiling, this isn't the most likely solution, the most likely conclusion of the season for this team, but as far as what they're capable of doing, I think it's interesting to see that 41% of our respondents said, hey, if Indiana can keep up the good play, if they can continue to knock down some key shots in close games, if Archie Miller can continue progressing as a head coach, Indiana could reach that second weekend, which I think right now all of us would take. I will say one thing. When I was watching this game on Sunday, the thing that stood out to me more than anything else is there's a question that's been surrounding IU fans, right? Like, what's the identity of this team? And it kind of hit me on Sunday after the game ended that it's not always going to be pretty with this IU basketball team, to say the least. They've established themselves as the team in the Big Ten that's 40 minutes of hell. Okay, 40 minutes where you're going to have to show up, whether it's in Bloomington or in Evanston or in Columbus or wherever, and you're going to have to play 40 solid minutes because Indiana's not going to blow you out, right? Indiana did blow out Nebraska, and Indiana lost to Northwestern earlier this year, but they're also not going to get blown out. I mean, Purdue was the largest loss of the season. It was double digits, 12 points as far as Big Ten play is concerned, and a bunch of these other losses – Indiana was right there until the end. To me, that's becoming the identity of this team. And Jevan, I'm going to throw this to you. This team is tough. This team's resilient. They don't back down. And it's 9 deep on the roster, 10 deep once Jerome Hunter comes back. It's the coaching staff. They are constantly trying to help this team get better. This team's pretty damn tough. Do you see it the same way, or am I just overreacting to a big win?
Look, they're pretty tough and they're pretty good. Like you said, we are just a couple possessions here or there in multiple games throughout the season against top 25 opponents where you look at our record now and you go, okay, 10-8, okay, yeah, we're a couple wins away from, 13 wins. We are for sure tough. And like I know you mentioned last week that you don't want to hear the effort and toughness ever again. But I mean, when looking at this team, I think people need to start asking where the toughness is, or instead of asking where the toughness is and say it's here. Like this is a tough team for sure.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, I look at this team and I say, man, they've had a lot of chances this year, especially in a pandemic where you're not playing in front of 15, 16, 17,000 fans. They've had plenty of chances to back down and to pack it in and to fold. And Matt, they just don't. They keep coming back even after tough losses like they had to Illinois last week.
Yeah, and so if Archie uses the excuse that we need to be tougher in his press conference, you need to hold him accountable for that because this team is tough as heck. I mean, we just heard from Archie today that one of the freshmen, Trey Galloway, is fighting through injuries and playing some really important minutes as a freshman. And look, he's been struggling recently, but still gives as much effort as he did when he wasn't struggling as much. That's not a toughness problem. He's just not playing well. So look, if you want to say he's not playing well, he's fighting through injury, that's fine, but don't blame it on toughness. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, absolutely. I tell you, man, these guys, when you go watch their huddles during timeouts, when you watch their post-game reactions, if they lose, they're pissed. If they win, they're celebrating as they should, especially in a game like Iowa. I tell you, Khristian Lander, we've talked about it a few times. When he was going through his struggles on Sunday, it wasn't perfect. When he missed a couple shots, he airballed one and then wedgied another 3 seconds later. He was frustrated with himself. He was furious at himself. And I saw more emotion from him than I've seen from a lot of Hoosiers, past or present. As soon as that bad run of play happened, he clapped his hands in disgust. He's annoyed. He's briskly walking back to the huddle like he's ticked. And he's only 18 years old. And, you really do appreciate seeing that from someone who's that young. And it's not just him. It's everyone else on the team. I'll say this. There's one stat that I'm not sure any one of our listeners know, and I'm not sure if you both know. Here's something that caught my attention yesterday. In Indiana's last 4 games, they're shooting 44% from 3 and 41% from 2, from inside the arc. That's right. The Indiana Hoosiers, folks, the team that can't shoot the jumper, is shooting 44% from 3 in their last 4 games. Now, it does help when you go up against a defense like Iowa's, to say the least. But, Matt, should we be seeing more of the 3 here, especially in these games coming up against Northwestern and Ohio State?
Yeah. Yes, we should. Welcome to the 21st century Indiana basketball, or back to it, more like it. We had a 21st century offense with Tom Crean, and then we've done whatever. We've gone back to the 80s with Archie Miller, and now we're back to 21st century. Yes, spread the floor. Let's give Trace Jackson-Davis and Brace Thompson room to work. Come on. It's not that hard. I feel like every other branch of basketball, even the women's team, shoots the 3. I mean, you go into any intramural game at IU, and I guarantee you everybody's just jacking 3s. Like, that's all they're doing. So I think the IU team, welcome back. Welcome back to I don't know what happened, but we got rid of that voodoo or whatever was around the program last couple of years about shooting 3s. Now we can shoot 3. Now it's on the team to actually execute the plays. So you can shoot it now. Let's actually execute the plays. Let's get a point guard in there in Khristian Lander that can help run them and facilitate them. So I like where this team is going offensively, especially as Lander blossoms. Yeah,
well, I'll tell you that. I mean, they shot 6 of 23 against Iowa on Sunday, but even then, the 4-game average right now since the first Iowa game is hovering around 44%. Jevan, is it a matter of working it inside out, or should Indiana just try to get more 3s, even if it means throw it around the perimeter, set some screens for guys like Franklin and Durham and Lander and Finney, and just let them bombs away? Not every possession, but a handful of them.
Well, so Trace draws so much attention whenever he does have the ball. So the inside-out 3s are going to be there. But he is our tallest player on the floor without Brunk, and he's 6'9". There's no reason that we need to be force-feeding him the ball throughout the entire 40 minutes of the game, especially when you look at a stat where we are shooting 44% from 3 and 41 from inside the paint. Or not, well, I will say inside 3, but it's really just in the paint because we don't take a lot of mid-range jump shots. So why not get up more 3s throughout the game? Why not let Leal take some more 3s? I mean, I saw a tweet from Trace himself, and he said, every time you're open, shoot the ball.
He did say that. I saw that too. Yeah.
They are letting everyone know that they can shoot the ball and they need to shoot the ball more. So, I mean, yeah, why not take some more 3s?
It'll be interesting to see how this all factors in once Jerome Hunter returns, if he returns, when he returns. I'll tell you this. I mean, one of those key possessions late in the game, right? We saw Rob Finney on a broken possession just sort of dribble into a 3. He knocked it down. It tied the game. I'm not saying you need to do that every possession, but hey, if there's something that Archie Miller can take from that going forward, whether it's Finney or Durham or Franklin or Lander or whoever, might be a quick way to get some cheap points. But
he has some good mechanics on that shot too, by the way.
yeah,
like Rob's a good shooter. He just clangs it sometimes. Sometimes he like kind of like leans back, and when he does that, you're like, come on.
Yeah, when he's vertical, it's the nylon.
Yeah. When he's confident with it and he steps up and actually takes the shot, like there's a reason why they call him Big Shot Rob. He can hit them. I just don't understand why he doesn't take them more often.
And once he sees 1 or 2 go in a game, like this goes for everybody, especially on IU. Like I've said, like when one shot goes in, confidence for everybody grows. But when you have players like Rob who aren't that consistent, or even Al who is maybe our most consistent 3-point shooter, once one goes in, the basket just gets so much wider for everybody, including the person who just shot it.
Right.
Yeah, Rob Finney this year is 34% from beyond the arc. Just throwing some other numbers out there. Armand Franklin's at 42% this season. Al Durham's also at 34%. Khristian Lander's at 32% now. And, of course, the freshman Anthony Leal, who everyone's excited about, he's at 38% from 3 right now. But it's time for Who Won the Week this week in IU Sports. And we're not going to go to the pros this time. We're going to continue to talk about the Hoosiers athletic department. Olympic sports are back. They're starting to pick up here. It's not just football and men's basketball anymore. How about the weekend against Iowa? The Hawkeyes, the women's basketball team, beat them in Iowa City on Sunday in a close game. By the way, if you didn't hear, Jalen Penn, one of the best players on the IU basketball team, opted out for the remainder of the season. Still, with that news, the Hoosiers went into Iowa City and knocked them off, and now are ranked number 15 in the country, which is incredibly rare territory for this Indiana women's program. The volleyball team split a pair with the Hawkeyes. The men's golf team played Iowa in a match play round over the weekend and beat Iowa in that too. In fact, they went on to get recognition as the college golf team of the week nationally this past weekend. So, hey, the Hoosiers. Hey, Scott Dolson, tip of the cap to you, my man. It's just the Hoosiers knocking off Iowa like crazy over the weekend. If you would like to subscribe to our podcast for free, friendly reminder, all you have to do is search for the Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date with all of our information by following us on Twitter at Indiana HQ or at the Hoosier Sound, and go to YouTube and click subscribe. That's huge for us. That's what will get the Hoosier Sound in front of the search engines and on top of the recommendations and all that sort of thing. Let's switch gears to football, folks. If you didn't hear, Deland McCullough is back. And if you don't know the name, Google him, get to know the name. Because Deland McCullough was Indiana's running backs coach from 2011 to 2016. And then premier programs wanted him to coach for them. So USC hired McCullough to be their running backs coach. And in 1 year, USC won the Pac-12. Ronald Jones had a great season. And then Deland McCullough got to the NFL. And, the Kansas City Chiefs, they had a pretty good last couple seasons. I know they lost on Sunday, but Deland McCullough was the running backs coach with Kansas City. And after the Super Bowl on Sunday, he must have had a real hankering for Bloomington. I'm sure he was thinking about it before the Super Bowl, obviously. But McCullough chose to come back to Indiana, a school that had a vacant running back coach position, and Indiana hired him. And it's a huge deal for IU. They've now hired McCullough as the running backs coach as well as the assistant head coach. Jevan, it was always going to be hard to fill the shoes. It was always going to be hard to fill the shoes of Mike Hart, who's now at Michigan. How big is it for this IU football program to have Deland McCullough back on its staff?
To put it short, it's huge. It's massive. And can we just give a round of applause to Tom Allen for just continuing to make the right moves, whether it be play calls or hirings or whatever it is? It's absolutely massive to get a guy that you had here for 5 years. He goes away, gets pro experience, gets more college experience, gets to see what it's like at the bigger schools, and IU is getting to that position. It's absolutely massive. I love the hire personally.
Yeah. Matt, do you echo those same sentiments? McCullough was the guy here when Jordan Howard and Tevin Coleman and Divine Redding all had great seasons moving on to the NFL. This is a huge deal, right?
It's humongous. Last summer we hired the best high school coach in America. And then this summer we hire one of the best assistants you could possibly hire for the position that you're hiring for. Deland McCullough helped make Tevin Coleman who he is and helped make Jordan Howard who he is. And then Ronald Jones. Oh, somebody who won the Super Bowl this weekend, right? Like, I don't think people are like actually understand what just happened. Our running back position, like especially for recruiting wise, is going to blow up. We are already known as a very underrated running back recruiting school. You come to IU, you'll go to the NFL. We have 2, now 3 running backs in the NFL, or have played in the NFL recently within the last couple of years. And Stevie's going to go play the Big 4. There's a platform, there's a blueprint in place to go to IU and get the NFL. So 1, recruiting's great. 2, I know who's the happiest person on planet Earth right now, and that is Samson James.
Oh man,
because Samson James, 1, doesn't have Stevie in front of him anymore. Bye, exactly. Stevie, have fun in the NFL. 2, gets to play behind what's going to be an experienced offensive line and with Michael Penix next year, and a really good offense and a really good team. And 3, has the best possible assistant coach we've had. I saw a tweet earlier today. It was somebody who was like, how did Indiana lose Mike Hart and somehow win the offseason for their position coach? Like, how is that possible? They let him go to Michigan and got a better coach. Like, that is exactly what happened this weekend. So just congratulations to Tom Allen. Again, Jevan's right. Like, I don't know what he's doing or what cheat codes he's discovered. But I feel like he's playing like NCAA 14 on like easy mode right now. Like that is what's happening. He's building the program up. You can see the trajectory of it going just sky high. So buy Indiana football right now.
Oh, I know, right? After the great season that the Hoosiers had. I mean, talk about loaded running back room. Samson James you mentioned, but how about freshman Tim Baldwin, who's going to have a year under his belt? David Ellis will continue to get snaps in the backfield. A couple of intriguing freshmen are coming in, and David Holloman and Trenton Howland. Then you've also got 2019 Indiana Mr. Football Charlie Spiegel on the team as well. So, all systems go for the running back room now, a position that was already pretty solid at Indiana.
Really quick before we move on, I do want to just show these little Mike Hart autographs that I got while I was in Colts camp.
Oh, wow.
When he was the rookie for the Colts, I was sitting here looking at all these autographs. Thought I'd pull them out and show them.
I love it. That's why you got to watch the YouTube stream. You guys. Right. That's why you got to watch the YouTube stream for Jevan's Mike Hart cards that he got at Colts camp. How about that? It's time for a social media shout out, which really is just another way of saying let's talk about CJ Gunn, a guy, a 4-star shooting guard, 2022. From Lawrence North High School, the program that got Greg Oden and Mike Conley into the NBA, and CJ Gunn, the next best player to come out of Lawrence North, committed to Indiana, and he's the first Hoosier to be part of the 2022 recruiting class. It's obviously exciting to get another guard in-state into the program. Matt, I know you love recruiting. So let's go ahead and tell the listeners what to expect out of CJ Gunn and what this means sort of on a big picture for Indiana basketball.
He's a big guard. How many times have I said this about somebody that Archie Miller has recruited? He's 6'5", and he's got hops. He's a really athletic shooting guard. Smooth too. It's like almost like a Romeo athleticism where it's like he gets to the rim and then he jumps and it looks like he kind of just like skipped. But then all of a sudden his head's at the rim. You're like, how is that possible? But no, he's really, really good at jumping. There you go. He's a decent three-point shooter. He's got room to improvement. The shot mechanics need a little bit of work, but there's a little bit of molding and he'll be fine. He'll be a good shooter. He's not very good at ball handling. He's not that good at passing. He's just a get the ball and get to the rim kind of two guard. A real attacker. Again, he's working on his three-point shot, and he tries to defend. He's not going to be the world's best defender, but in the pack line, I feel like in a system that benefits, teamwork and moving around and having long, lengthy defenders, he'll really thrive in that. So he's a really good fit. He's not going to be a starter coming in. You see 4-star recruit. He'll probably get some minutes his freshman year, but a 4-year starter, he's going to be a really good player for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, Jevan, on another level here, when you look at the 22-23 season, I know it's a bit down the road. You don't really anticipate, and I know there's some wonky eligibility stuff going on in college basketball, but Aldrum won't be here. You don't expect Rob Finney or Parker Stewart to be here anymore. As you look at CJ Gunn, how does he figure in this Indiana backcourt if you can look into your crystal ball and talk about the 22-23 season?
Well, by then we will have Trey, Anthony, and Khristian as juniors, so they'll play very prominent roles within the IU offense. But like Matt said, he won't be someone who comes in his freshman year and starts like maybe an Al has in his freshman year, or Romeo did his freshman year, or Rob. But as we've seen with Indiana, we in the past, like since we've all been watched Indiana since 2012, 2013. When guards stay for 4 years, they typically have a pretty good career here at Indiana. So that's another thing that I tend to see when looking at someone like CJ Gunn. And I used to have a friend who played at Lawrence North whenever CJ was a freshman. He was a sophomore. So I texted him and I was like, dude, what can we expect other than like things that you can just watch on film? And he said he's a really hard worker. So that's something that, is another thing that you see with the freshmen that we have here. So it's just something that we can continue to see going into 2022 and 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. It's another in-state guy who comes to Indiana. I believe over on Twitter, he's CJ_Gunn, GUNN 22. So go give him a follow. He's somebody who Indiana fans will be able to root for starting in the fall of 2022. Okay, let's bring it back to the present. And we titled this podcast, It's Now or Never for a Reason. And Jevan, you cited this stat earlier. Indiana's only got 2 wins under Archie Miller in the game following a top 25 victory. They've got a chance to make it number 3 on Wednesday, which means you guys, when you listen to this podcast, the game may be over, may not be over. We hope you get to this as early as possible on Wednesday. The Hoosiers head to Evanston to face the Northwestern Wildcats. It's a game that'll tip at 5:30 Eastern, a little late afternoon tea time special over on Big Ten Network. Indiana's a 4-point favorite. Northwestern is coming upon some hard times here, okay? They beat Indiana back on December 23rd. They beat Ohio State a few days later on December 26th, and they've lost 9 straight since. They've got a lot of the same players, got a lot of the same personnel, but they've just been buried in a brutal Big Ten conference. This Northwestern team is 75th in KenPom on offense. They're 73rd on defense, 72nd overall. KenPom likes Indiana 69-67. Northwestern lost to Purdue 75-70 at Purdue on Saturday. Jevan, we've seen this matchup before. Northwestern came into Bloomington and won. Indiana has to win on Wednesday, right? Or else I don't even know. I don't even know what to say. But they've got to win.
Northwestern hasn't won a game in 2021. Indiana's coming off a top 10 win. All of the signs lead to this not going well for Indiana, right? Like based off of the past.
Oh man.
But
oh God.
I told you I have optimism. And with that optimism comes winning games where you're supposed to win, following big wins, right? Now, Matt, I see you rolling your eyes. Listen, please jump on this train because I think IU basketball is headed in the right direction for the rest of this year. And what needs to happen for Indiana to go in and win this game, they need to keep riding the freshmen, all 4 of the freshmen. Obviously, Race and Trace are going to do what they have to do. They have all year, and they will continue for the rest of the year. Armon is going to play the basketball. He's not going to go 2 for 10 again. And if he does, hopefully the freshmen step up like they have against Iowa. Rob might go 1 for 7 again. He's only hit 1 shot in the last 2 games. In my opinion, ride the freshman. Geronimo needs to be the first sub in. Lander needs to follow right behind him. Leal needs to play. He needs to take at least 4 threes. Like I would like to see this be a game where the freshmen build on that confidence that they have coming off a big win in Iowa.
Matt, you look like you got a strange look on your face, Matt. The floor is yours. What do you make of this matchup on Wednesday night?
See, I want to believe in IU, but then I go back and I've been opening up the box score for the Indiana game, and I think all right. No, I think you're right. I think I do believe because there's no way that Chase Audige loses his mind again. Okay, there is a 0 chance that happens. I was trying to remember back to the game. I was like, man, who beat us that game? We were talking about Boo Booey going into the game. We talked about Miller Kopp going into the game, and it was freaking Chase Audige that went prime Michael Jordan, 23, like 1997 Mike, just on us. And I was like, are you kidding me? So, no, I don't think that'll happen again. I think this team will remember that loss and be upset about it. They'll also hear all the chit-chat about, man, can you guys win a game after you beat a top 25 team? Could you win 2 in a row, please? That would be nice. So I also agree with Jevan. But if that happens again, if by some act of hell that some Northwestern you can blame it on me because I spoke it into existence. You can blame it on me. I don't think it'll happen. I highly doubt it. But for the love of God, don't let Miller Kopp shoot open threes. Thank you.
Yeah, I will warn our listeners. Matt also said there was no chance Indiana was going to beat Iowa on Sunday. So take everything with a grain of salt. This Northwestern team goes 9 deep. Okay, their best players are Pete Nance, Miller Kopp, Boo Booey, Chase Audige. Audige was the leading scorer against the IU. In the last matchup, he went for 17 points, 3 rebounds, 6 of 9 from the field. Miller Kopp had 13 in that game. Boo Booey had 11. Pete Nance had 9 points, 3 boards. Nance is actually Northwestern's leading scorer in Big Ten play. They're pretty guard heavy. Nance and Ryan Young will be responsible for guarding Race Thompson and Trace Jackson Davis. And here's the thing. When you look at the numbers from that game back on December 23rd, Anthony Leal and Jordan Geronimo combined for 0 minutes. So Indiana's clearly a much different basketball team than they were in the first matchup. If you ask me the keys to victory, Indiana's got to own the boards. They've got to get to the free throw line. Did a good job of that against Iowa on Sunday. Northwestern has areas of weakness in both of those categories. It's strengths for Indiana. So those are the 2 things Indiana's got to do. If Indiana loses the rebounding battle on Wednesday, they're not going to win. Just I'll put it that clearly. So as we look at this game, I don't expect it to be a blowout. But Matt, I'm going to toss it to you. Northwestern's a 4-point underdog. What do you expect the score to be on Wednesday night? Ken Pom is saying 69-67 Hoosiers.
Yeah, it's gonna be a close game. This IU team, if we blow out anybody, that team had maybe one of the worst games in their program's existence. This team is just gonna play games close because they're just going to try to drag that other team down to play really badly. And we're not gonna play that great on offense, but we'll get enough buckets to make it close in the end, and hopefully we outmaneuver them in the end. So when I look at this game, it's 69-67 on Ken Pom. My guess is like 66-63 IU. There you go. IU win.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Jevan. Indiana's got to win, right? What's your prediction when it comes to this matchup on Wednesday evening?
They're going to win, and they're going to win by a score of 67-60. They're going to win by 7 points. Be one of Indiana's bigger wins this year, I know. But I expect Trace Jackson Davis to have a really big game. I expect him to have a even bigger game than he did against Luka Garza, and I just kind of hope that's going to transition into the next game. But again, like I've preached, freshmen, so play them all big minutes too. Why not? Let's get a big win with some big confidence going into the future games.
Yeah. Here's the deal. All the pressure going into this game on Wednesday is on Indiana's shoulders. All of it. And Northwestern's desperate. I said this back when Northwestern beat Indiana, and I'm not going back on it. Northwestern's a good team. You're just getting buried. You're just getting worn down in a really, really tough conference. And all this just gives me anxiety. And it just makes me say, look, if Indiana goes out and wins by 20 or even wins in general, good for them. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Northwestern is going to protect home court. I think they're going to look at Indiana as a team that they can beat because they've beaten them already. And it's not like Northwestern's a team that's lost players due to injury or has done anything differently. They are who they are. They're just going to be more confident. I think Northwestern's going to win a close one, 68-66. I think it's going to be that kind of game, low scoring, hard fought. Down the stretch, Northwestern, I think, might just hit a couple more shots. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize next Tuesday. But, we'll see how it plays out on Wednesday evening in Evanston. And then there's a game on Saturday afternoon against a much tougher opponent on Saturday, Ohio State, who's ranked number 4 in the AP poll and has won 5 in a row, not lost 9 in a row. The Buckeyes will host Indiana on Saturday afternoon. Ohio State is Ken Palm's 7th ranked offense, 7th ranked overall, 4th ranked offense, and 64th ranked defense in the country. So they've got some Iowa-type tendencies in them. By the way, it's a noon Eastern start on ESPN. The number 1 crew of Dan Schulman and Jay Billis will be on the call. Matt, this Ohio State team is really good, and they beat Iowa in Iowa on Thursday night. They beat Maryland at Maryland on Monday night, and their best players are Dwayne Washington Jr. and E.J. Liddell. What does Indiana have to do to pull off an upset of the Buckeyes?
They need another miracle. That's what they need. I'm tired of saying it this year, but it's kind of true. This Buckeyes team is really good. And you know what's scary? Is that all the really good players are juniors and sophomores. Yeah, they are going to be staying, and this team is going to be around for a while. Dwayne Washington Jr. is everything I've ever wanted in an IU guard. Everything. Shoots 36.4% from 3, 14 points per game, 3 rebounds a game, 3 assists per game. Just a fantastic player. Shoots 87% from the free throw line. Is a good defender. Come on. E.J. Liddell, 27.5 minutes per game, 15 points per game, 75% from the free throw line, shoots about 30% from 3 as a big guy. Can stretch the floor, gives them an option there. Justice Suing from Hawaii, by the way. I'm really jealous of him. 10.5 points per game, about 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 30% from 3 again. This team is really good. They play together, and they have some really good role players, one of which, in Kyle Young, has been a menace to IU in the past. Justin Ahrens, who I believe is didn't he transfer from Michigan State to Ohio State? I'm trying to remember.
No, his brother Kyle was on Michigan State, and Justin decided he was going to wear the scarlet and gray.
Correct. So I knew that last name was familiar. But this is a really, really good team. So what we're going to need to do is probably play our best game on offense all year. And then on defense, we're going to have to stay out of foul trouble because this is a team that likes to get to the rim a lot. And they live at the free throw line. So we're going to need to make sure that we don't foul them and don't give them opportunities to get free points.
Yeah, you talked about Justin Ahrens, man. He's shooting 48% from 3 this season on 4.7 attempts from deep per game. So, Jevan, as you look at this matchup, Indiana did beat Ohio State in Bloomington last year, lost to the Buckeyes in Columbus, although Ohio State was a much different team last year than they are now. The Wesson brothers are gone, for example. Jevan, as you look at this game, who are the 1 or 2 Hoosiers that need to step up outside of Trace Jackson Davis? I mean, we know he's got to bring it every night.
Oh, well, one is by far Race Thompson. I think you saw a little bit in the Iowa game. I think Race defended Luka Garza a lot better than Trace did. And I think that's going to have to be the same thing when it comes to players like E.J. Liddell, who's a little undersized for his position, but he plays a lot bigger than what he really is. And then I know we preach it all the time, but those guards that start the game have to play better. And I'm mainly talking about Rob and Al. Rob, Al, and Armand cannot combine for 4 of 28 or whatever it was. That cannot happen. You won't beat this team on the road. You're going to need the freshmen to play not freshman mentality. They're going to have to go out there and they're going to have to be aggressive. And like I said, Anthony Leal, just like the game against Northwestern, is going to have to come out and shoot the ball. He's going to let it fly. It's going to open up the paint for Trace and Race. But look for Race and then the starting guards to have a really big game. Hopefully.
Yeah, when you look at this Ohio State team, they've won 7 of 8. And if you go back, their 7 wins at Rutgers, Northwestern, at Illinois, at Wisconsin, Penn State, Michigan State, at Iowa, at Maryland. Pretty solid run here for Ohio State. The one thing they don't do, by the way, I said 7 of 8. They've won 8 of 9. I take that back. Math is hard. Look, this is an Ohio State team. The one thing they don't do all that well is force turnovers. They don't really get their hands in the passing lanes. They don't draw charges. They don't poke the ball away and take it the other way. So Indiana can't turn it over. And that's really what it comes down to. I mean, you're obviously going to have some throughout the game, but you've got to keep that number. You've got to keep that number in the mid-single digits, 5, 6, 7, 8, not much more than that, especially the careless ones. They also, Ohio State, that is, they take a lot of threes as far as percentage of shots they take. So try to limit their good three-point looks. And if you do that, you can hang in there against the Buckeyes. Ken Palm likes Ohio State 73-67. Jevan, I'm going to go to you first. What's your prediction for this game? Who wins and by how much?
I know I do this a lot, but I do want to – CJ Walker, Indiana high school guard, plays for Ohio State. I got to watch him a little bit in high school whenever he played here. He had a really good game in sectionals against Kyle Guy. Kyle Guy was my favorite player in high school growing up. But that's beside the point. Oh, man, I don't want to take Matt's card as saying, maybe Ohio State's going to win. But it's going to be tough to go to Ohio State and win. So I'm going to say Ohio State wins 70-61.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with my prediction next. And look, I'm going to go with the same thing I said last week. There is no way that Indiana is going to beat Ohio State. So if I'm wrong, then I'm right. And if I'm right, then I'm right. So I can't go wrong.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, you might be happy. It doesn't make you right.
Well, and at least I'm consistent. Last week I jinxed it. This week I jinxed it. So therefore I'm right. If we end up losing, then I'm still right. I can't lose.
But it's not really a jinx because this team can beat anybody. We've said it before.
They can. It's true.
Go in and win anywhere they want, and they can welcome any team to Bloomington. We can beat anybody in the country.
We can also lose to anybody in the country.
Yeah.
Matt, you're leaning Ohio State, and what do you think the final score is going to be? What do you think the margin is going to be?
77-69.
77-69 Buckeyes. Just going to get to this one real quick. Saturday, noon start. Ohio State's on a big winning streak. I think they're due to lose. Indiana will go in there and win. Who cares? They're going to lose? Yeah, that's right. In my world, they're going to lose to Northwestern and beat Ohio State by 2. I think Indiana's going to win 73-71.
Big Ten basketball.
And really confuse people a whole lot more. That's right. Close loss to Northwestern, followed by a close win at Ohio State, and every bracketologist in the country will be extremely, extremely annoyed. By the way, speaking of that, Indiana came in this week as a 9 seed in Delphi bracketology, a 10 seed in Joe Lunardi's ESPN bracketology, and 11 in Mike DeCourcy's Fox bracketology. So when you look at that, after the win over Iowa, the Hoosiers are in the definite buys group, if you want to look at it that way. In other words, they're not in a play-in game. They're in the field of 64 outside of those play-ins. That's where IU is at. If they can win 2 games, they'll be bumped up quite significantly this week, next week, that is, in the bracketology. So it's time to wind things down here with some of our closing thoughts. Matt, you're up first. The floor is yours. A lot happened over the week. Indiana got a big win over the Hawkeyes. Deland McCullough's here to coach once again. Second in line, second in charge as the associate head coach, as well as the running backs coach here. Recruiting news is all over the place. It's all yours.
Yeah, I think Tom Allen's a miracle worker. I think that just needs to be pointed out and just stressed to the podcast because I don't understand. He hits home runs every time except for bowl games. So maybe one day we'll get there. Sorry, I had to do that.
Yeah, that one stung.
I mean, as a person who's witnessed both of them, I have a little bit of a personal vendetta against Tom Allen.
Is it your fault? Is that what you're saying?
It might be. I won't be there next year, so we'll test the theory this upcoming season. Yeah. As far as basketball team goes, hey, my outlook on the NCAA tournament is this: if I'm going to be in the NCAA tournament and I'm not a 1 through 5 seed, I'd rather be a 10 or 11 seed. So there you go. When we're talking about bracketology, I know I like Delphi bracketology. We're friends with Coach and the rest of the people at Delphi, but I'd much rather be in the position of a 10 to 11 seed. I feel like there's an easier way, especially this season with the 1 seeds being so good this year. And so top heavy this year in college basketball. I'd much rather be in a 10 and 11. Give me a chance to go to the Sweet 16 and not have to play a 1 seed.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there, especially when you look at Gonzaga and Baylor probably going 1-2 or 2-1 in some order. Jevan, your closing thoughts tonight as we wrap up another edition of the Hoosier Sound.
Yeah, I agree, Matt, with Matt, the Tom Allen miracle worker. He makes one more good move. Might be time to put a statue outside for him. No, I'm just kidding.
I think it's been time.
He's got to win a bowl game first, as to what Matt said. No, but in all seriousness, great hire. Looking at basketball, I'm excited. I have optimism looking forward, and that goes all the way through March. So we can only see what happens when it comes to March Madness and the tournament. But we have a few big games until we get there, so we got to focus on those first. Also, shout out to the women's program for doing what they're doing. IU athletics as a whole, just competing in what they in their respective sports.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the water polo teams jumped into the top 15. There are a number of other really good programs here at IU with these Olympic sports coming back. For me, it's this. Look, we've been hard on Archie Miller in this podcast, but I'll tell you one thing. He's coaching his tail off. He's trying. He's doing his best. And off the court, he at least carries himself with some sort of decency and professionalism after wins or after losses. He always answers the tough questions. You may not agree with him always, but he always answers. He always gets in front of the media or gets in front of the IU fans out there and answers the tough questions after the losses, and he doesn't get too high after the wins. And I'll tell you something, we talked about Fran McCaffrey earlier. He took a shot at a reporter for asking McCaffrey why he pulled Luka Garza for the final 12 minutes of the first half after picking up 2 fouls. And Fran basically insulted the reporter for asking a fair question. Archie Miller won't do something like that. He understands that there are a lot of tough decisions in basketball. He understands the pressures that come with coaching a Big Ten team. And for that reason alone, I do tip my cap to Archie for getting this team where they are right now. It's been a tough year, and Indiana's locked in, and he's getting his team to play hard. And if you keep doing that, the wins might definitely follow. So that about wraps it up for our 181st show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Thank you to our live audience. You're all beautiful people. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at the Hoosier Sound as well as at Indiana HQ to make sure you don't miss any in the future. Lastly, if you enjoy our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time.
Peace and love.